In the late 19th century, a castle was built for a prince called the Chateau des Amerois. And then, 100 years later to the year, a fiendish and disgusting pedophile by the name of Marc Dutreoux would begin his reign of terror by kidnapping, assaulting, raping, and just generally being a nasty, horrific human being to children. What this would uncover would change the world of Belgium forever. What do those two things have in common, do you ask? What does a castle built in the 19th century have to do with a pedophile who offended in the 90s? Well, find out now on Investigates After Dark. Welcome to Investigates After Dark, a program wherein we uncover hidden truth and unknown meanings. We pierce through the concealment, we peer around the corners, we cite every fact, we explore every lie. This is Investigate After Dark. Trust no one. The Chateau des Amerois, otherwise known as the Mothers of Darkness Castle, is a neo-Gothic style castle ensconced within the vast Ardennes forest in Belgium. It was built for King Philip of Belgium. He is the brother of King Leopold. And special attention when this castle was built was supposedly paid to its chapel. It's supposed to have this gigantic chapel that is, to quote the word, polychromed, enabling the chapel to illuminate in many different colors and rays and facets of light. And this was, by the way, not a very common thing to have done back in the late 19th century. The castle was rather unremarkable for a very long time until World War II. Boo! Don't adjust your television screens. I am still your hostess, the body. It's just been 4, maybe more months since I decided to start pursuing this case again. Looking into the Chateau des Amerois and then the horrific crimes of Marc Dutreoux, and then the mismanagement of everything that happened after, really has done a lot to drain me of my my hope and faith in humanity. It was a hell of a fucking story to fucking promise you guys, being that, it is such an enormous and malignant fucking thing. Since I started pursuing this story in the intervening 4 months since you last saw me on this video, I have had all the sources that I've gotten this information from, sources that were very difficult to find. I had to go into old Roku channels. They used to have this thing where creators could post videos to Roku, and there were still leftover channels that sort of were grandfathered into whatever the Roku system was now. But anyway, these few channels where these people uploaded documentaries are the only known places I could ever find some of the documentaries and stuff I had seen just as early as 2016. It's not as if this channel has not been afraid, or has been afraid, to tackle issues that other people don't want to talk about. Because I really don't have very much to lose, right? I'm just a trans woman. I mean, what can possibly... No one's going to believe me anyway, right? So anyway, all of these Roku channels that were left undisturbed ever since, time had moved on from them and the Roku, programming had evolved from it, suddenly were deleted. All of the ones that I'd looked at. all those different channels. It was very strange. And then I looked, and there are still Roku channels that you have that creators used to post available to watch. So it means that they didn't get rid of all of those Roku channels. They only got rid of the ones like that. And that's been a common theme with some of the stuff that you can research, is that information about it becomes less and less, and misinformation becomes more and more. A perfect example of this will be what we discuss now. The Chateau des Amerois passed into the ownership of the Nazis during World War II. This would mean that it would be one of the castles that Heinrich Himmler and the occult wing of his SS secret police under Adolf Hitler. The SS was known for their pursuits of pagan and, let's just say, unchristian magics. There's actually even historical data talking about how they had a group of witches that wouldn't cut their hair and cast spells in castles. Keep that in mind. All of this is just to say that in the 1970s, after World War II was done, the castle, well, the Chateau des Amerois, as it were, would then fall into the hands of the Solvay family. Alice Solvay is the niece of the founding Solvay patriarch, who was responsible in the industrial age for the fortune built in industrial pursuits, obviously, just not in the United States. He was in Belgium. I guess you could kind of compare the Solvays to sort of the Vanderbilts or the Rockefellers or the Carnegies. The castle was bought by Alice Solvay for a reported $70 million. And this castle, it's not easy to live in a castle. And this castle, ensconced in the Belgian forest, is completely and totally secured off from everything around it. There are 24-hour a day security and closed captioning videotapes and just everything you can imagine for this huge bleeding white elephant. I mean, a castle built in the 19th century is a terrible place to try to even use part-time. There's also no pictures of the castle. There's no pictures of the interior, which is unusual. Some castles are photographed for historical, preservation. The Solvays are also famous and were made rich beyond any moral man's comfort level. I mean, we're talking, they went from millionaires to billionaires in the 1990s with the advent of the pharmaceutical boom. They were the creators of Prozac. They were also huge proponents and some of the first pioneers of the concept of adding fluoride to the drinking water. Also, funnily enough, the Solvays ran a charity, as so many of these families do. There's something unusual about that. Ran a children's charity. Now, all of this information I'm telling you about this castle seems a little weird, maybe, but none of it seems like it makes any sense, right? Well, what if I told you that there is compelling evidence that this castle was the base for rituals, devil worship, child abuse? Like, they would call it satanic ritual abuse, but this is not just satanic, it goes back way further. But for the purposes of this, we'll call it satanic ritual abuse of children in these castles. And at the Mothers of Darkness castle, as the Chateau des Amerois is known in some circles, is actually an Illuminati fortress wherein old crones, high priestesses of some dark demonic order, sacrifice children in order to please their voracious and insatiable dark gods. I know all this sounds crazy, but what if I told you that the testimony of several children who would survive their encounter with the vicious and sadistic pedophile Marc Dutreoux lived to tell the tale? give testimony about fantastically just disgusting and deranged parties that would take place at castles like the Chateau des Amerois, wherein powerful elites would sexually abuse, sacrifice, and torture in ways that I'm going to have a difficult time telling you all, but I'm going to tell you nonetheless. I'm very tired of these channels who say that for the respect for the victims and the victims' families, we're not gonna discuss or show anything or get too graphic. No, I mean, here at Live After Dark, we're gonna get graphic. Investigates After Dark is nothing if not a truth mechanism for you people and for myself. So we'll get into those details later. But to get to those details and to get to everything else about this case, I have to now get you up to speed on Marc Dutreoux.